Okay, so if you've ever played guitar live, especially with older gear, you absolutely know that feeling, right? That dread, the dying 9-volt battery.
Oh, yeah. It's subtle at first.
Right, like your overdrive just compresses a little strangely. Maybe the attack gets a bit soft.
Uh-huh. And then, kind of slowly, that nice, shiny top end on your vintage phaser, it just starts to sag.
Your whole tone gets muddy, kind of sick sounding, and you realize, oh man, I've got maybe a minute before this thing just dies completely.
And you're stuck fumbling with that tiny battery clip, maybe the little door, probably sweating onto the circuit board.
Exactly, mid-song usually.
It was more than just, an inconvenience, though. Back in the late 70s, and this is before we had all the standardized power bricks we have now, that 9-volt battery, it was a serious liability, especially for touring guys.
How so? Because the voltage drops.
Precisely. Every time that voltage sagged, the pedal's circuit behaved differently. So, consistency, forget about it. Your tone could drift all over the place during a set. If you relied on that pedal, you're basically gambling with your sound for the show.
Absolutely. So this need for stable, consistent power, it was like the big unspoken problem every pedal maker had to figure out eventually.
Right.
Which brings us to MXR. What did those original innovators do about this constant battery hassle? That's what we're digging into today, our mission for this deep dive. Looking at two really fascinating and honestly increasingly rare bits of vintage accessory gear. The MX137 power converter and its essential partner, the MX138 power plate.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is we're not talking about an effect pedal itself. We're looking at a solution. It really shows how the market was maturing.
Okay.
This pair, the 137 and 138, they represent this really crucial early attempt by MXR to build out a whole proprietary power supply. Well, ecosystem, really.
An ecosystem, right.
They remained in a pretty tight window, seems like late 70s through maybe 81. So they're genuine historical artifacts showing how pedal boards started to evolve.
And getting info isn't easy.
No, original technical documents are incredibly scarce for these. So most of what we know, what we're basing this on, comes from digging through old gear listings, collector notes, looking at the actual physical items that pop up for sale.
Okay, so let's unpack this system, starting with the MX137 power converter. This was the main unit, the brains of the operation.
You could say that. It was designed specifically to let those classic battery-only MXR pedals run without constantly swapping 9 volts.
Right, getting them off the battery treadmill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look in places like Effects Database, Marketplace Descriptions, they consistently put it in that era, late 70s, early 80s. It's usually classified under power supply or accessories.
Its very existence kind of proves MXR knew musicians needed something more reliable, right? For more than just one pedal.
Definitely. They saw the need for a fixed voltage source.
And physically, it wasn't like a modern wall wart adapter you just plug in.
No, not at all. The MX137 is often described as being in a pedal format, usually a solid black box metal enclosure.
And for listeners maybe not deep into vintage stuff, why is that pedal format detail important?
Well, it tells you a lot about how they intended it to be used and how rugged it was. Pedal format means it was built tough, just like their Phase 90 or Distortion plus MAB, built like a tank.
So meant to live on the floor with the other pedals?
Exactly. You weren't supposed to just tuck it away behind the amp. It was meant to be right there on your pedal board, ready to take some abuse, stomping road life. This thing wasn't some flimsy add-on. It was designed as a core part of the rig.
Okay, so function-wise, what's the MX137 actually doing? We have to guess a bit here, but based on the tech back then.
Well, the concept is pretty straightforward power engineering, really. It takes AC power from the wall outlet, converts it into DC power, specifically 9 volts DC for the pedals.
And crucially, it regulates it.
Right. It regulates that output voltage, so it distributes clean, stable, consistent power to whatever pedals are hooked up. That's the whole point. Get rid of the voltage drop and inconsistency you get with batteries.
Guarantees the pedal circuit sees the voltage it was designed for all the time.
Every single time.
Okay, and this is where that ecosystem idea you mentioned really clicks in, because MXR wasn't just selling the converter box alone, were they?
No, and this shows some real foresight. You see evidence in old marketplace listings, like on Reverb sometimes. They show the MX137 being sold as a kit.
A kit? What was in it?
Typically, it would be the converter unit itself, plus 3 of the companion MX138 power plates and a special custom power cable to link them all up.
3 plates. So right away, they're thinking multiple pedals.
Absolutely. That bundle is like solid proof of their design thinking. They knew if you had a power solution, it needed to handle, at least a small chain of effects.
It's kind of like buying a phone today, but the only way to charge it is you also have to buy a special back cover for the phone.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. That back cover is the only way to plug into the charger. It's the very closed loop, totally proprietary. But for the late 70s, that was pretty advanced thinking about how these things connect together. System integration.
Okay, so the genius or maybe the weakness of this whole setup was that it required you to actually modify your pedals.
Right.
The MX137 power converter on its own. Kind of useless because those classic MXR pedals, they didn't have a DC input jack. They were battery-only designs.
Exactly. Which brings us to part 2. The absolutely necessary physical interface, the MX138 power plate.
The hardware hack, as you called it.
Pretty much. It's the component you needed to actually get external power into a circuit that wasn't originally built for it. It's literally a replacement back cover for the pedal.
Okay, wait, hang on. Looking at some listings for the MX138, people sometimes mention it adds a power jack, but they describe it as an external 1/4-inch power supply jack. A 1/4-inch jack, like for a guitar cable. Isn't that weird?
It is a bit of an engineering oddity, yeah. It's a great point. A 14-jack jack is fundamentally an audio connector.
You're right.
But we got to remember the context. Late 1970s,
Yeah.
MXR is trying to build a durable, road-ready solution using parts that were easily available and tough.
Okay.
Those small barrel jacks, like the
Yeah.
2.1 millimeter ones we see everywhere now, they weren't standardized yet, not widely used for power in music gear back then. But the 14-value phone jack, that was everywhere, cheap, and incredibly robust.
Ah, so they just repurposed it.
They repurposed that really sturdy connector type specifically for DC power delivery, which of course is why you needed that unique custom cable to go from the 137 converter to the 138 plate. You should just use a guitar cable.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Use the toughest, most common part you have available. Okay, so you unscrew the standard bottom plate of your Phase 90, the one with the little battery door,
Yep.
and you screw on this MX138 plate instead. What's it doing inside, functionally? How does it connect to the circuit?
So it acts as the gateway, basically. It lets the pedal circuit accept that external 9-volt DC coming from the 137. It routes that power directly to where the battery clip would normally connect.
Does it do anything else, like clean up the power?
We have to infer a bit here
Yeah.
because schematics are missing. But based on similar circuits from that time, it's reasonable to assume the plate itself probably had some basic components inside, maybe some filtering like smoothing capacitors to clean up the DC a little before it hit the sensitive effect circuit.
Makes sense. What about protection?
That's the big one, especially since they use that non-standard 14-patent jack for power.
Yeah.
Huge risk, right? Someone could accidentally plug in the wrong thing, or maybe a power supply with the polarity reversed.
Ouch, yeah, that could fry the pedal instantly.
Right. So you have to assume there's probably some kind of protective diode in there for reverse polarity protection. But again, without the official schematics, we just can't confirm the exact details of that safety net. It's an educated guess.
It's the vital link, but maybe a bit vulnerable too. And finding one today, you mentioned that the MX138 power plate is listed as extremely rare.
Oh, extremely. If the 137 converter itself is considered rare, the plates are like hen's teeth. Almost mythical sometimes.
Why so much rarer than the converter?
Just think about it. Low survival rates are almost inevitable for something like this. It wasn't the main event. It was an accessory, a modification part.
Ah, right.
So if a musician eventually stopped using the whole 137 converter system, maybe they got a newer pedal board setup. What did they do? They probably took the 138 plate off their pedal and put the original battery cover back on.
And the plate just gets tossed in a box or lost or thrown out.
Exactly. Lost to time, mostly.
Yeah.
Which is why finding original intact MX138 plates today is so difficult and why they fetch such high prices in the collector's market when they do surface.
So we've established these two, the MX137 and MX138, were definitely a system designed to work together, often sold together. And we see that confirmed when they pop up in the vintage market, now frequently still attached to the pedals they were meant for. Like you might see an early MX120 Dynacomp or an MX101 Phase 90 listed.
And the seller will specifically point out, hey, this includes the power converter and the special backplate, emphasizing that this is the only way to run this classic pedal without a battery.
It wasn't just some random accessory product line. It was a very specific, bespoke solution aimed at working players who needed that reliability night after night.
Definitely. They were tackling that core problem of power consistency head on.
But, okay, if their solution was so thought out, potentially quite clever for the time, why didn't it become the standard? Why did the whole industry eventually go with the Boss-style 2.1 millimeter barrel jack, center negative polarity instead of MXR system?
Yeah, that's really the key question, isn't it? And the answer probably lies in how proprietary and invasive the MXR system was.
Invasive how?
Well, while it was robust, it required that permanent physical modification to the pedal, swapping out the backplate. Every single pedal you wanted to power needed its own specific MX138 plate fitted.
Ah, okay. So not easily scalable or transferable.
Exactly. It was a closed system. When more universal solutions started appearing, like the external DC input jacks that companies like Boss popularized, and then later dedicated power bricks from Voodoo Lab and others, it just made more sense.
You could power any pedal with a standard plug, no surgery required on the pedal itself.
Right. The MXR ecosystem, clever as it was just too locked in. It couldn't compete with the flexibility of emerging open standards. It lost the standardization war, essentially.
But the idea, the need it addressed, certainly lives on. You still see people talking about it.
Oh yeah, the legacy is strong. Even now, you browse forums like the Gear page, and you'll find discussions where modders are kind of drawing inspiration from that original power plate idea.
Trying to figure out how to safely convert old battery-only MXR classics to run on modern power supplies.
Exactly. The desire to keep those amazing vintage pedals running reliably is still very much alive. It shows MXR was definitely thinking along the right lines, even if their specific execution got overtaken by other approaches.
Okay, let's pivot here for a moment and talk about the elephant in the room. Our whole deep dive today, it's built on looking at stuff for sale online, collector notes.
Marketplace forensics, basically.
Right. Technical history pieced together from secondhand descriptions, which inevitably means there are some pretty big knowledge gaps, doesn't it?
Huge gaps, yes.
And for someone who actually works on this gear, like a repair tech or a serious modder, what are the real-world consequences of those gaps?
Well, it means often they're essentially working blind. We don't have the original precise schematics for the MX137 power converter.
And that's not just academic curiosity.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
It means we don't know its exact output voltage tolerance. Was it super stable 9V or did it drift a bit? We don't know its maximum current capacity. How many pedals could it really safely power? So if you're a vintage gear tech trying to service one of these rare units today, you can't actually guarantee it will safely power, say, 3 or 4 old MXR pedals without potentially risking damage to them or to the converter itself. You just don't have the manufacturer's specs to work from.
Wow. Okay. So the lack of original documents directly translates to increased risk for anyone trying to use or maintain this hardware today.
Pretty much, yeah.
What about the plate itself, the MX138? What crucial data is missing there?
For the plate, the big unknown is the confirmed wiring diagram and exactly what components are inside. Like we talked about, without that official data sheet, we can only infer the presence of those critical protective diodes.
The reverse polarity protection.
Exactly. So modders working on these pedals today have to be incredibly careful, because if that diode isn't there, or if it's failed and someone accidentally plugs in a power supply with the wrong polarity, poof, you could instantly destroy that precious vintage circuit.
Yeah, fried vintage chips. Not good.
The lack of confirmed documented protection means that risk is always lurking.
And beyond the circuits themselves, there's also the sort of human story, the historical context we're missing too, right?
Definitely. We don't have the original ads or warranty cards or maybe internal MXR memos that would tell us why they made certain design choices.
Like, why did they choose that weird 1/4-inch jack for power? Was it just availability or something else?
We can guess, but we don't know for sure. We also don't know if there were minor changes or different versions made year by year during that short production run. That kind of detail is lost.
And famous users. Any evidence of big names using this system back in the day?
Not that reliably surfaces, no. That kind of provenance is often missing for accessories compared to the effects themselves. And maybe the biggest gap of all, we have absolutely no hard data on survival rates. How many of these MX137 converters are made? How many are actually still working as intended today? Versus how many are broken or modified or cannibalized for parts?
Are we looking at the last few hundred units globally? Maybe.
We just don't know. The fact that we have to basically reconstruct how this product worked almost entirely from scattered eBay descriptions and forum posts, it really highlights how fragile technical history can be when it's not properly archived by the original makers.
Okay, so wrapping this up, Looking back at our mission for this deep dive, the core takeaway seems pretty clear. The MX137 power converter and its partner, the MX138 power plate together, they give us this remarkable, maybe slightly complex, but definitely ingenious snapshot. It's MXR tackling head-on the single biggest headache for professional guitarists in the late 70s, that unreliable 9-volt battery.
Yep. They saw the problem, they defined it, and they built a real, physical, durable solution.
Yeah.
It definitely paved the way for the standardized power solutions we have now, even if their specific system didn't end up being the winner.
A fascinating piece of pedal history.
Absolutely. And, it leaves us with a really interesting, kind of provocative thought to chew on. Given that almost everything we think we know about how these units operated their tolerances, their protection features, is inferred. It's pieced together from collector notes, marketplace listings, modder forums, not from MXR's own technical documents. What crucial design details might be completely lost forever?
Like what kind of details?
Well, maybe specific component ratings they chose for reliability under heat, or maybe subtle circuit tweaks for noise reduction, or even just the intended safe operating limits. Things that aren't obvious from just looking at the unit.
Things you'd only know from the original engineering specs.
Exactly. What essential design trade-offs or hidden features or maybe even known failure points might we simply never uncover because the history is preserved only through the lens of the collector marketplace, not through the original design documents? It makes you think about what technical truths get lost when history isn't formally recorded.